In your experience, what are some common financing challenges faced by businesses when selling an owned property and purchasing a new one? Are there any strategies or options available to mitigate these challenges?
It's funny, Ben. Why do we have this in this chapter and in this section? So, what it is, this whole thinking strategically is like stopping and taking a moment. So, this owned industrial is when you're selling one that you own. And so, owners, owner users are tenants that bought their building, right?
Yep.
So, with an owner user situation, what you have is a business owner that's decided it's time to buy their building. And so when you're at the very start of any kind of journey of, hey, I'm going to make a change in what I have, and you're a business owner, if you own your property, you have a different set of circumstances that you face instead of a tenant that's moving on from a building that they're renting from a landlord or leasing from a landlord. And so if you own it and you're going to be selling it to go from 50,000 to 100,000 in the same example as the earlier part of the chapter, you have to go through all things like a condition of the property. You have to go through weighing the condition of the property and just thinking through, like, it will be your responsibility to find a match for someone who wants the property. And so that will cause you to have to think through, what do I need to do to fix any maintenance issues, which we call deferred maintenance, like maintenance that you have deferred or you haven't performed. And then any improvements you may need or want to do to make the property more attractive. So you can think of like the quintessential residential prepping a property for sale where you put new flowers out in front of the walkway and maybe you put a fresh coat of paint. There are some of those types of cosmetic and aesthetic opportunities to freshen up the image of a property before you sell. But also, if you own your property, you likely have a bank loan. And so if you have any debt on the property, is it an SBA loan or is it a conventional bank loan? And depending on the loan, you may have different terms like prepayment penalties that are penalties that you pay for selling your property before the bank has had chance not only to get a return on their investment, but some of these bank loans are sold to other investors. It is good to just stop, take a moment, assess the physical condition of the property, and then to stop and take a moment and assess any financing considerations so that when it is time to find your 100,000-foot building, you don't then get tripped up on those as you're halfway through the process. And so last, Ben, you didn't ask, but maybe you were going to scenario planning. So that's a lot to take in, right? If you are a business owner and you lease a building and you're trying to figure out what to do next. And so with this concept of always being the buyer, you are looking at alternative solutions. And so with scenario planning, I've just found some people will want to know, what does it look like if I continue to lease and go from 50 to 100,000 feet? Or what if I'm a tenant now and I want to buy 100,000 feet? And leasing 100,000 versus buying 100,000 are totally different propositions. And scenario planning will just go through taking a few different alternatives, whether they be lease or sale, and then looking at them side by side and understanding, what does that mean to your monthly cash outlay? What does that mean to your cash outlay when you're thinking of setup costs and down payments? And then what does that mean to year 2, 3, 4, and 5, or even longer for any investment horizon? Scenario planning is pretty fun to then take and layer on different alternative solutions and then just look at them side by side so that executives can then think through, okay, what fits, what lines up with my vision and with my finance team and my operations team. And that can be helpful for companies because leases and acquisitions are 5 to 10-year commitments at a minimum. And so for executives to think through, what's my business going to look like in 5 to 10 years, and to line up their property. Their business is what has them needing property in the first place. So to really think back through what are the drivers and what's likely to change and then what lines up. And so some executives, when they're making these decisions on 100,000 feet or 500,000 feet, they recognize the implications of these types of decisions. And sometimes will take more time up front to really think through what each alternative means to them. And then they may have to discuss internally, they may have to discuss with the board of directors or with an investment committee and like a walk through scenario planning, like and iterate 2 or 3 different times before deciding on a direction.